The gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Gonzalez, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Ray. I want to start with Alameda and some of the loans. So Alameda took out loans from various counterparties, is that correct? Not just FTX?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, were any of those loans called?
You know, we're going through the corporate history of what was repaid, and some of those loans, in fact, I think were repaid, but they had counterparty positions with a lot of those companies as well.
To your knowledge, were customer funds transferred from FTX to Alameda for the purposes of paying off called loans?
That's certainly possible. I mean, we need to investigate that further, but that's certainly one of the paths that we would potentially find.
Thank you. And then in your testimony, you described the use of computer infrastructure that gave individuals in senior management access to systems. I'll term this the backdoor, the quote backdoor that we've heard about. One of the things that Sam Beckman-Fried has said is he had no knowledge of commingling of funds. He said that multiple times. That backdoor, which you've said allowed for unlimited access of Alameda, essentially unlimited access into the FTX customer accounts to fund their investments. In your eyes, is there any way that Sam Bankman-Fried or senior management wouldn't know about this sort of thing?
No.
Thank you. Now shifting towards the goal of the bankruptcy proceeding, which is to find the assets and return those assets ASAP. I think that's the goal that we all share. Part of that, of course, is having the data and a paper trail that will allow you to recreate transaction histories, figure out where the assets are so you can actually go get them. How would you characterize the quality of the record keeping at FTX and Alameda?
Well, ultimately, we hope the raw data is there, and through the expertise that we have, we will be able to assemble it. It'll be time consuming because it's raw data. The jump start you normally have in companies, we just don't have. So we're starting in near zero.
Do you have any evidence that suggests that data was willfully destroyed prior to your arrival in the company?
We have imaged the Slack environment that the company had, but we are aware that there were certain forms of communications with disappearing messaging. So there's obviously risk of loss there.
Okay. One of the things in Mr. Bankman-Fried's testimony that has, I guess, leaked, that wasn't submitted, is he spends a considerable amount of time talking about Binance and how Binance effectively created a run on the bank, suggesting that, had that not occurred, FTX was solvent and would have been just fine. Prior to that episode, is your belief that FTX was solvent?
No.
I didn't think so either. That's pretty much all I have for questions. The one final thing I'll note, also in that testimony, there's some accountability, which is of course good, but then there's a lot of excuse making and some complaining. Like, in fact, many of us are still missing access to our own personal data, which is being held hostage by the Chapter 11 team's leadership. I would note that's what happens in life when you perpetrate a massive fraud and steal billions of dollars from your customers. You lose your freedom and you lose access to a whole bunch of things that otherwise you wish you would have. So just a simple reminder for everybody that that's what happens. Final question, actually, I do have one minute left. You've mentioned the $100 million that was transferred to 1,500 Bahamian accounts prior to the bankruptcy. I'm not going to ask you to say this is exactly what happened, but what does your sort of spidey sense say about what might have gone on there? It's awfully suspicious.
Obviously, it's alarming. In my job, I try to keep focused on one thing: follow the money. So we'll see. We'll investigate who received that money and what the circumstances were.
Well, thank you, and thank you again for being here. I wish you luck in tracking down all the customer funds, making sure they're returned to their rightful owners. And thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.